We have the Vice President of the United States of America, Mike Pence. Mr. Vice President, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
You too, David. Great day for America. Great jobs report today. 1.4 million jobs and a huge decline in unemployment down to 8.4%. It's a testament to the resilience of the American people and to the strong foundation that President Donald Trump poured in our first 3 years. The American comeback is happening all across America.
Now, we still have a lot of people unemployed. We have made up about half of the number of people that lost their jobs as a result of the lockdown earlier, and that's very encouraging that we've made up so much in so little time. But that still leaves about over 10 million people, and we have the expiration of the federal unemployment benefits. Now, there is this executive order that the president put out extending those benefits at less money, but extending them to $300, $400 if states put in $100 a week on that. What's the status with that executive order?
Well, you make a great point first. You know, at the height of this pandemic, our economy had lost 22 million jobs. But because of that foundation that President Trump poured, of less taxes, less regulation, more American energy, free and fair trade, we literally have added back 10 million jobs. But to your point, we have a ways to go. And that's why, as Congress has just continued to refuse to reach an agreement to extend the Paycheck Protection Program or unemployment insurance, President Trump took executive action. And at this point, we have roughly 40 states who have been approved for that $300 unemployment extension. States can add another $100 to that. But I want to assure your viewers, David, that we're going to continue to work closely with leaders in Congress in both political parties. Nobody wants to send more direct relief to American families. Again, another check to American families more than President Donald Trump. We want to continue the Paycheck Protection Program. We want to address unemployment benefits through that relief package. But the other thing is we're going to continue to take our case all across this country, David, that we need 4 more years of the kind of policies that laid a foundation for this V-shaped recovery that's happening all across America. I mean, it's remarkable to think that Joe Biden actually was bragging yesterday about his plan to raise taxes on American businesses in the midst of a global pandemic. But when you look at Joe Biden and the Democrat Party and their radical left agenda, higher taxes, more regulation, a climate change agenda, they want to stifle American energy, they want to abolish fossil fuels, and go back to the kind of economic surrender that resulted in half of our trade deficit being with China alone when we took office. It's a clear choice. So we're going to continue to support this recovery. The president will take executive action. We'll work with Congress to provide additional relief to put Americans back to work. But the other thing we're going to do over the next 60 days is make sure we get 4 more years of a president who's created nearly 7 million jobs in our first 3 years and is going to bring this economy all the way back and then some in the next 4 years.
Mr. Vice President, the president was talking about having the possibility of a vaccine by October. Now, Democrats are suggesting that we may be sidestepping some of the safety precautions of rolling out a vaccine in order for the president to have an election boost. How do you respond to that charge?
You know, it really is remarkable from the outset of this pandemic, where Democrats, if you remember in January and February, Democrats in Congress were focused on trying to impeach the president. President Donald Trump suspended all travel from China. We stood up the White House Coronavirus Task Force. But lesser known, David, is that in the first week of February, when we first received the coding for the coronavirus, we went straight to work on a vaccine. And from very early on, President Trump sat down with our major research companies and said, look, we need medicines, therapeutics at record time. He told the FDA, we want you to clear away unnecessary red tape for the development of medicines that have literally saved lives. But to think that we have at least 3 different vaccines already in phase 3 clinical trials is a testament to the energy this president has brought to it and the incredible innovation of American research. companies. But make no mistake about it, we're not going to cut corners in the development of a vaccine. But at the same time, through Operation Warp Speed, the president's made it clear that we want a safe and effective vaccine available for the American people absolutely as soon as it's possible to have. That's why with Operation Warp Speed, we're actually manufacturing several of these promising vaccines now. So the moment that the FDA says that it is safe and effective, we will have tens of millions of doses to be able to administer to the American people. And all of our best scientists tell us that it's not if, but when.
Well,
everybody knows we believe we're going to have one or more vaccines for the coronavirus before the end of this year. But the sooner, the better, David. Absolutely right.
I just want to move on to another.
There are people that are out there talking down a vaccine, but this is an example of incredible American innovation. Every American should be proud.
Mr. Vice President, forgive me for jumping in. There's a long delay on this interview, so forgive me if I do that again. But I just want to ask about another politician who's been throwing barbs at the president and the administration. That's Governor Cuomo from New York, who actually in the beginning of this pandemic, when the president worked with governors to get all of the respirators to the states that couldn't get them, to open up hospital beds, Governor Cuomo had been very appreciative of the president's efforts to work with the state of New York. Now he's singing a different tune. I want to play a tape and get your reaction. Play Governor Cuomo.
He can't come back to New York. He can't. He's going to walk down the street in New York. Forget bodyguards. He better have an army if he thinks he's going to walk down the street in New York. He is persona non grata in New York City. And I think he knows that. And he'll never come back to New York because New Yorkers will never forget how gratuitously mean he has been.
Now, Mr. Vice President, that's a 180-degree change from the way he was in April and May when he was very appreciative of what the president is doing. Your take on that?
Well, the people of New York know that President Donald Trump was there in their darkest hour. We surged millions of personal protective supplies. We produced ventilators. We sailed a Navy ship into the harbor. We built hospitals. We saw New York through that challenging time. And shortly after that, Governor Cuomo said that it was phenomenal what the president and this administration had done. I think the people of New York see through all of this kind of rhetoric. I mean, the heartbreaking thing is that, you know, today we've lost more than 180,000 of our countrymen, but 1 out of 6 of the Americans that died in the coronavirus died in the state of New York. And many of them died because of the bad decisions that Governor Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio made. They were late in responding to the need for a lockdown. And we all know that Governor Cuomo ignored the clear guidance from CDC and our task force and literally returned thousands of seniors who were positive for the coronavirus back to nursing homes. I grieve for the loss of life, and the families that are looking on know that you'll always be in our hearts and prayers. But to have Governor Cuomo just playing politics with this rhetoric, look, people of America know better. The people of New York know better. And I'll tell you what, no army required. Karen Pence and I are looking forward to being in New York City on 9/11 next week, because nothing could keep us away from remembering our fallen and honoring our heroic first responders as we remember September 11th. And President Donald Trump, I know, loves the city of New York, and the people of New York know what this president has done and will always do for that great city.
It is going to be quite an anniversary, 19 years since 9/11 hit us. Mr. Vice President, I want to get your response to a headline in The Atlantic. It is, frankly, a very nasty piece. It's all anonymous sources. But those anonymous sources, and of course the mainstream media is running this all over the place, says that Americans who died in war are losers and suckers. Now, without going into too much detail about an anonymously sourced article that's that incendiary, tell us exactly what the president has done for the wounded vets that he is charged here for having insulted?
Well, David, first off, let me tell you, I spoke to the president that day when he was in Paris. I know how disappointed he was that they had a bad weather call, and he wasn't able to go to Belleau Wood to remember our fallen on the occasion of that anniversary. And any suggestion that otherwise is absolutely absurd. Because, as you suggested, not just because of what we've done for our military. This, after years under the last administration, when Joe Biden was vice president, we inherited a military that was hollowed out with budget cuts. The VA literally had people dying on waiting lists because they couldn't get to a doctor in time in the VA. And it was a scandal-ridden agency from the first day of this administration, demonstrating his love and respect for our armed forces and our veterans. We rebuilt our military. We restored the arsenal of democracy, the largest investments in our national defense since the days of Ronald Reagan. And the VA, totally transformed with reform, literally has a 95% approval rating among veterans today. We ended the era of scandals. Veterans Choice is now available for every veteran. So the record really speaks for itself. But let me be more personal than that, David, and tell you that any suggestion that this president doesn't love and respect men and women of our armed forces and their families is absurd on its face to me, because I have walked the grounds of Arlington National Cemetery side by side with President Donald Trump. I have gone to Dover Air Force Base and stood with him as he consoled grieving families on the day that their loved ones came back to American soil. And I must tell you, I have never known anyone in public life who respects or reveres the men and women who serve in our armed forces, their families, or our veterans than President Donald Trump.
Mr. Vice President Pence, we thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you here in New York on the memorial next week. I said anniversary, we should call it a memorial, the 19th memorial of the terror attack against the United States that hit New York very hard. Thank you very much for being here, and safe travels on the campaign trail. Appreciate it.